Hello, everybody. Welcome to Amazing You podcast and YouTube channels, the channels where stories of resilience, triumph, and unwavering hope come to life. And in each episode, we dive into the inspiring journey of individuals who have faced the toughest challenges heads on and emerged victorious. Our aim is to be a beacon of inspiration, offering a guiding light to those navigating through difficult times. And whether you are dealing with health challenges, professional setbacks, or personal struggles, this channel is dedicated to uplifting your spirit and showing you that even in the darkest moments, there is a path to hope and triumph. So join us as we share powerful stories that transcend adversity, reminding you that resilience is a force within us all. So please be prepared to be inspired and find the strength to navigate life challenges. I am your host. My name is Dr. Rani Thanacoody. I am a clinical hypnotherapist using rapid transformational therapy method. I am a Mars, Venus, life and relationship coach, astrologer, tarot reader, past life regression practitioner, and life force compassion practitioner. And today, everybody, I am super excited to introduce you to my very special guest. But before I introduce her, I want to say a huge thank you to the audience who's been watching and listening for the past few years. So thank you for supporting the channels. And for anybody who is new today, it's your first time, welcome to the channels. Please subscribe, like, and share. And today, let me introduce you to that wonderful, beautiful guest I want to share with you today from the States. Her name is Jessica Moyer. Jessica is a transformative wellness and leadership coach. She's a TEDx speaker and 3 times author who empowers women and leaders to reclaim their energy, resilience, and purpose, especially through life's hardest seasons. So welcome to Amazing You, Jessica.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today and with the audience to just share my story and hope that I can inspire others.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for being here. I am sure you will inspire everybody. Yes. And I want to ask you my first question that I'm very intrigued reading your bio. If you can share with us briefly about your story, about how you became a transformational wellness coach.
Absolutely. So I was always very passionate about health and wellness growing up. I was an elite gymnast. I was a runner in high school and college and just always cared about my physical health and knowing that my mental health was very much connected to my physical health. Fast forward to, after college and starting a career in the pharmaceutical industry, having a baby 9 weeks early. My firstborn was very premature. My husband was in school at the time, and getting through that trial in life and realizing that life doesn't always go the way we planned. And then my husband owed 4 years to the military for he had did ROTC in college. And so after optometry school, we settled in Maryland for his first duty station. I got pregnant with my second child, Stephen. And very shortly after his birth, as a mama bear, I realized something was not right with him. He wasn't reaching typical milestones. And although I was bringing him to the doctor and they were assuring me he was okay, deep in my heart, I knew something wasn't right with him. And on September 25th of 2001, which was only 2 weeks after September 11th, I was faced with the devastating news that Stephen had a genetic disease called spinal muscular atrophy, which at that point I had never heard of. I could not pronounce it. And I just thought right away, well, no matter what his disability is, that as a mom, I will take care of him and love him just the same. But within the next breath, the doctor told me that most likely Stephen wouldn't live to celebrate his first birthday. So, as any parent can imagine, this is the worst news that we'll ever receive. And so, what to do with, with the news that your child is not going to live. And so, it was a tough road ahead for my family and for myself, and watching our son deteriorate before our own eyes. And so that began a very dark time in my life, and it kind of eroded even more after that. But that's the beginning of my story, and the beginning of some really challenging times at such a young age for myself.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Indeed, that is a very difficult time for a mom to hear such news about her child. So how did you, because in that challenging times, how did you reclaim your energy, your resilience and purpose? What did that look like for you during that hard time, that hard season of your life, Jessica?
Yeah, and I think anyone that goes through challenging times, and we all have different crosses to bear, we all go through different challenges, that it's survival mode at first. You just put one foot in front of the other. If you're fortunate, there's some people that can't even do that. And so for me, it was, getting through the days during the time that he was alive. He passed away at the age of 9 months. It was just taking every day with gratitude that he was still there with us. And also, I had a daughter to take care of. And so she was my light during the time after he passed. But very quickly, even actually before he passed, we decided to start a nonprofit in his memory, because I had connected with some other moms through Cure SMA that had helped me through that time. And so my family and I decided to start a nonprofit in his memory. And so I really just poured all of my energy at that point into, kind of blindly, into just, what can I do to help others? What can I do to take away the pain? And that didn't really work, but it did help me to move forward and to do fundraising in his memory. We did tons of nonprofit events. We supported a lot of other families that unfortunately were going to go through this journey. And we did a lot of advocacy work. And so that gave me purpose, and knowing that someday it might make a difference.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I am very sorry for the loss of your son. That is really a lot of grief, a lot of pain, for losing such a young soul at his early life. And how did grief shape your leadership, Jessica, in your definition of wellness?
That's a great question. And honestly, it took a long time, because after Stephen's funeral, I had miscarried. I had gotten pregnant again. The baby was affected with SMA. So we had to make tough decisions in life. And grief, for me, movement was what helped me get through grief. So I would go out for runs. I actually ran some marathons in Stephen's memory and raised money. And so for me, a big part of my therapy and my healing was truly moving through it and not feeling stuck in it, because it's easy just to sit and you know feel sorry for yourself. But there's so many other parents going through this, or people just going through really hard times. And so I could be a victim, or I could choose to show up in life for my daughter. And I had two more children. And so for me, a big part of my healing was trying to take care of myself, which I didn't do a very good job at the beginning. And we can get more into that. But for me, movement was a very big part of my healing.
Right. Thank you so much. And what do you mean by movement? What is it that you were doing? Were you just running the marathon? Was that one part of it, Jessica?
Yeah, that was a big part of it, because I was a cross country runner and always very active. Definitely getting outside and being in nature helped me. But also, I started to, once we moved to Delaware and got settled there after my husband did a deployment and we lived a lot more life, I started to teach fitness classes locally. I became a personal trainer because I saw there was a need specifically for women who were struggling to just take better care of themselves despite what they were going through in life. That was always kind of a grounding for me. And it was a safe space. And so I was encouraging others to just take care of their mind and body despite whatever was going on the outside. We could still take care of ourselves. And that helps us get through those storms in life. And so I became very active in the community, in the wellness space.
That is fantastic. That is great to hear. And thank you for sharing that. And the other thing I want to ask you, you mentioned that a bit early on during our conversation here, you said that you were not taking good care of yourself. Can you share with us what is it you are doing? Because maybe that might interest the audience to know so that they can start to look at what they can change in their life. So what is it that you were not doing properly in your life in terms of your wellness, and how did you change that to look after yourself? What are some of the practices you started doing?
That's a great question because I feel like sometimes when we're in the midst of challenges, we kind of bury ourselves in something. And for me, it was movement and activity and teaching, but it got to the point where it was almost too much because we can actually inflame our body, increase our cortisol levels by too much exercise. And so my body started to break down and I started to having some symptoms that were not good for me. And early on, I was a gymnast. This is going back many years, but I dealt with some eating disorders. And so, I was probably not eating the best foods and I didn't really know. We don't know what we don't know. And I've learned so much in nutrition. And that's been an ongoing process for all of us. What we learned, what we thought was good for us, and now we know it wasn't. Um, but I was also just living in a very high level of stress, which is so bad for our bodies ultimately because we're in the fight or flight all the time. And when our cortisol levels are elevated for a long period of time, it creates so much distress inside our bodies that can then manifest on the outside. And so my body started to shut down. I went through early menopause, all these things that I didn't realize I thought were good for me. Ultimately, I had to really step back and think, how can I make some changes? And this was in my early 40s to take better care of myself because I want to be around for my children and I want to support others. And so I really started to doing some deep dive into personal growth and development. I went to a John Maxwell training. I became a Ziegler Legacy coach. I then went and did an integrative nutrition coaching. So I really started to pour more into how I could heal my body and then just share that knowledge specifically with. I worked with a lot of women when I owned my gym to really just help them understand what was going on in times of stress and how we could kind of calm our sympathetic nervous system down.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Yes, that is so true. When we are under stress, it impacts all the organs in the body, with the vagus nerve, like it's the longest nerve that's connected to all our different organs, our digestive system. So it's very, very important to look at ways to calm our nervous system. Thank you. And do you have any practices that you do on a regular base, on a daily basis that you can share with the audience, please, so that they can feel inspired to find something that would help and motivate and keep them uplifted? Yeah.
I think it's different for all of us what works. And so we're all bio individual. For me, I try to start my morning with gratitude. And I know that's a big part of what you preach is before I get out of bed, what am I thankful for? I have a Bible app I look at, and it doesn't have to be a long process. For me, it's not, it's just a few minutes, but it sets your day in a good tone.
Mm.
Something else that's really worked for me that I've written about in my book is called the 5G mindset. And each day I remind myself of 5 gifts. What am I grateful for? What did I do to pour into someone through generosity, whether it's a text message, whether it's paying it forward in some way, whether it's complimenting someone, small acts of kindness. What did I do to grow today? And that could be as simple as doing a Wordle or a connections or reading a few pages in a book, listening to a podcast. Grit, that's the fourth G. What did I do to push myself just a little more today? And maybe for some people, it's just getting out of bed. There's days where it's tough. And so digging deep. And then the last one is grace. How did I practice grace or forgiveness today? And so they're my 5 Gs. And each day I really think about, like, specifically at the end of the day, how did I practice them? And it really shifts your mindset.
I think that is really, really powerful what you just share, those different practices from your book. And and I always start my day with gratitude, and then in the evening do a bit of reflection on how my day has been, what I'm thankful for, what I received as well. So I think it's I really appreciate that you shared that. And tell us a bit more about your book, please.
Yeah, it's called Triumph Through the Tears, Finding Hope and Purpose Through Loss. And I wrote it over COVID. I know we had some time on our hands. And that was always one of my goals is to share my story of losing Stephen, going through other in utero losses. My dad had passed away. And so I really wanted to share the tools that had helped me through my grief journey. You know, we never get over it. We learn how to heal and carry that with us. And so I shared just some tools that had helped me, including self-care. And I just hope that it inspires others to really just take one day at a time. And it looks different for everyone, and that there's really no judgment. It's just finding people that can support you throughout that journey and asking for help when you need it.
Yes, that is so true. But we need to ask for help when we need it. And where would the audience be able to find your book, Jessica?
It's on Amazon. I also, they can reach out to me personally. I have a new website. I just relaunched my website called therealwellness.net. It's a framework I've created to help people just live a healthy lifestyle through making some realistic changes that are optimal and that can carry you through without those quick fixes. So I just recently launched that. Or they can find me on Facebook, Jessica Smith Moyer.
Fantastic. So we'll put your links, we'll put your website, your new website, and anybody who wants to get in touch or find your books can go there. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I've got so many questions. There's so many things to ask you, Jessica. I'll have to make sure I stay within the time, and we've got a few more minutes. So my other question to you, what would you say? Because we all experience grief, and you have experienced grief, a lot of challenging times. So what would you say to somebody today who is listening and watching us, who is in deep grief and struggling to see a way forward?
Yeah, it's so hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes. You know, everyone's story is individual. And so first I would say to not lose hope and to know that there's always light in the darkest of times. Really reaching out to someone, number one, asking for help. I think as humans, we don't do that enough to just admit that we need help. And so, number one, even if it's myself, even if it's you, Dr. Rani, is to just ask someone to say, "Hey, I'm struggling today. I need some help." That's one. Two is sometimes you just have to reach outside yourself. In the darkest of times, when we can help others, it saves us. And that's what I did for a long time is I poured into my nonprofit, I poured into others. And there's always a cautious side to that is to make sure that you still are showing up for yourself and putting on your armor first. But sometimes when we can help others, it makes us see that it's not just us going through those tough times, and it makes you feel more part of a community, if that makes sense. So there are a few things I would say that you can do.
Thank you for sharing those very powerful tips that people can start to think of. And I really like both of them were great, but I like the last one that you say to to do some altruistic work for others, helping others. And I have remember when I was in very, very challenging times, going through very hard times in the job, but knowing that when I can come home and I can help somebody, that made my day, you know. It really uplifted me and making me feel that I am I am doing something good as well, you know. It's life is not all bad, and there is that gives me the hope to keep moving forward. So this has been a big part of my life. Like whenever I would face any challenge, I remember one time I would even go to a center and offer help to clean the window. Yeah, we just go every week and just clean the windows. And it helped me so much to get out of my head, you know,
Hmm.
to be more present. And that gives me great joy. And very, very quickly, the solution came after that. You know, it's like you don't have to wait long, but just being in the present moment, doing something to help others, it's so powerful. I have done it, you've done it, so we know the power of giving
Yes.
not giving all of ourselves, but giving some of our time to
Hmm.
others. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
And you are a leadership coach as well. So I would like to ask you one question. How can leaders show up authentically when they are privately walking through loss or burnout? Because, as a leader, you have to walk the talk, you have to show a great face to your company, to your people. But at the back, I know of so many people going through so much of loss, burnout. How can they show up authentically while they experience burnout or loss?
That's such a great question. This is something that I encounter so often. I think number one, and I always remind people that we are replaceable in our job, but we're not replaceable to the people that love us. And so to really step back and think, how am I taking care of myself? Because in order to be a leader, we have to lead ourselves, and that is self care. And that's also other people are watching us. So if we're grinding all the time and not doing the things that we need to do to fill our cup, then we're not really being true leaders. It's almost like you're false in a way. So number one is, to step back and realize, am I taking the best care of myself in order to lead, and to practice that pause and to realize that we're only human and we are replaceable. So I think sometimes we think we're not, that we're so important in our job, and we see it all the time. People are fired all the time and they're shocked. They gave all their time to their job, and now they're like, well, what have I done to take care of myself? So I really think it's just self-awareness and asking yourself those hard questions. What am I doing to prioritize my health? Because it's great if you work so hard, but if you can't enjoy the fruits of your labor, what's the point?
And that's a great point you made. Thank you, Jessica, because I have talked to people recently and they are being laid off. And many, many of them have been telling me they haven't looked after themselves. They've been pouring their energy, their time, their resources to the job, but now they found that they are empty inside. And I was telling them, now it's time to look after you. It's an opportunity to start to do the things you love and really focus on you. And they tell me, yes, now I'm realizing I need to look after me. Now they are realizing after having spent so many years, but it's never too late. It's always when whatever time it is, it's the time. So do it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Start today.
And I love that you said that you've been certified by leaders like John Maxwell and Zig Ziglar. I love them. I've been following them, and I still have John Maxwell 1 minute talk every day on my email,
Me
and I
too.
love that. So, can you share with us what leadership lessons have stayed with you the most, Jessica?
Gosh, there's so many. And I think of when I went to the Ziegler Legacy certification, it was just so humbling and also overwhelming, because I went to John Maxwell. It was a very different experience. When I walked into the Ziegler Legacy training, it was the Ziegler family that was there, Tom Ziegler, Julie, Cindy, and they just included you as part of their family. And I think that's so important in leadership, is to make you feel like you're one of them. And I think the biggest takeaway is how we live our life and what legacy we want to leave. And legacy not meaning like a fortune, but how do we live our life treating others? And one of the most famous quotes is, you can have everything you want in life if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And that's truly servant leadership. And so I think that's a big part of what I've realized in my own life, is that whatever I do, I want to make sure I'm pouring into others and supporting them, still taking care of myself. But that's truly how I want to be remembered.
Yes, thank you so much. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's really well said. It's about remembering how we want to be remembered. It's not about the title, it's not about the position. Everything will go, and we are all replaceable. Now there is AI coming, so many people will lose jobs. And so it's about really thinking, what is it we want to leave for people to remember us? Yeah, I think, thank you so much for sharing that. And
I got to hear Les Brown last week on stage, and he said something that I was just like, yes. He said, make sure you're living full and dying empty. So, are we giving it all we have in this lifetime, seizing the moments, taking opportunities so we don't have live with regrets? And that really stuck with me.
oh, yes. Les Brown is a great motivator. I love him. I trained with him during the pandemic and
Oh,
he
wow.
kept me uplifted, I tell you.
Yes.
I am so glad I did that because that was the best time to be on his course, where everybody was getting so worried about COVID. I was with him week for 6 months and that has changed my life. Yes.
Absolutely. I can see that.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you had the opportunity to be in his presence and seeing him in person. I'm sure it's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, his story is incredible. I encourage
Yeah.
everyone to look up his story. Yeah.
Yeah. Jessica, it's so lovely talking to you and we've got two more questions for you. Where can the audience contact you and get in touch with your work, Jessica?
Again, the realwellness.net, I just launched. I am pretty active on Facebook, Jessica Smith Moyer. I don't have a business page. It's just me because that's how I am. I try to keep it very authentic. I'm on Instagram, moyer.jessica. That's pretty much the only platforms I'm on right now. Building out my YouTube slowly.
That's great. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your links. It will appear below. And my last question now to you is if you could leave the listeners with one piece of wisdom for their own journey, what would it be, Jessica?
I would say one of my favorite quotes that I used to have in my gym was, don't look back, you're not going that way. And so to think about just starting today, just do it. Don't overthink it. Just take one little action to start making a difference. And that little 1% really adds up. And again, I'm here to support you. I know you are to reach out and to ask for help if you're struggling.
Thank you. Thank you for those beautiful words of wisdom, Jessica. Jessica, it's been a pleasure hosting you, having you as my guest today, and listening to all those, to listening to your journey and everything you've been going through. And I would like to say huge thank you to you and
Thank you.
wish you a lot of luck, lot of I wish you the very best for the in the future in everything that you do. And I would like also to say huge thank you to the audience for watching, sharing, and subscribing. And remember, everybody, you are amazing. You have always been amazing, and you always will be amazing. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon. I'll see you soon for another episode. Bye bye.
Thank you.